Most people believe that if they pay their credit card on time, every month, their score should reflect that discipline. And that belief is reasonable. It follows a clean logic: good behavior in, good result out. But the system that calculates your score does not observe when you pay. It observes what number appears on your account the day the bank reports the data to the bureaus. And many people discover this only after watching their score drop, without understanding why. The system does not measure discipline, it measures data. To understand what a credit scoring model actually does, start with an analogy. Imagine a teacher who wants to evaluate how clean you keep your desk. But instead of watching you throughout the day, the teacher takes a single photograph, one shot at the end of the last period. That photograph becomes your grade. It does not matter whether your desk was organized all morning. It does not matter whether you cleaned it at lunch and again after third. Period. What matters is how the desk looked at the exact moment the photograph was taken. Most credit scoring models used in the United States, FICO being the most widely referenced, operate by a similar logic. They do not process a continuous stream of financial behavior. They work from a monthly data snapshot reported by each lender to the credit bureaus. In FICO-based models, one of the most heavily weighted components accounts for roughly 30% of the total score calculation, though the precise weighting varies by model version. That component depends largely on a single ratio, reported balance divided by available credit limit. This is called credit utilization. The critical word in that formula is not balance or limit. It is reported. The model does not calculate what you spent during the month. It calculates what balance was on file when the lender submitted its data. One photograph, one number. The most repeated piece of credit advice sounds like this: pay your statement when it arrives. That advice is not wrong for the purpose it serves. Paying the full statement balance by the due date eliminates interest charges. That part is accurate, but the advice does not speak to how your data is reported to the scoring model. Because by the time the statement arrives in your inbox, the reporting has already taken place. Here is the actual sequence. Your credit card cycle closes on a specific date each month. On or around that date, the bank transmits your current balance to the credit bureaus. The statement is generated from that same data. Then, typically 15 to 25 days later, you receive the statement and submit your payment. The payment arrives after the report. Consider a concrete example: a card with a $5,000 limit. During the month, you spend $3,000. The cycle closes. The bank reports a balance of $3,000 against a limit of $5,000. A 60% utilization rate, now recorded in the ERA system. 1 week later, you pay the full $3,000. No interest charged, no late payment. The behavior was financially responsible throughout, but the scoring model did not record that payment as part of its utilization calculation. It recorded the balance that existed at the moment the lender submitted its data. The payment arrived late. The data had already left. This is the structural gap in the popular belief. The advice is built on the assumption that payment timing shapes what gets reported. It does not. The statement close date, not the payment due date, determines what balance reaches the bureaus. These are two distinct events in the cycle, and treating them as equivalent produces a consistent misread of how the model processes your profile. For several years, I paid my credit cards the same day I received the statement. I considered this careful, even disciplined. I was eliminating debt promptly, I was paying in full, I was following the advice as I understood it. But every month, the model was recording the highest balances of the entire cycle. The figures from the day the cycle closed, before I paid anything. My payments came after the report had already been transmitted. What I was optimizing was interest avoidance, not utilization management. Those are two separate objectives. The model only registers one of them in the utilization calculation. To be precise, this was not a financially damaging error. Paying in full and on time is the right foundation, but it was a persistent misread of the mechanism, and it was producing a higher reported utilization than my actual spending patterns warranted, simply because I did not understand when the data was being captured. Understanding the architecture changes how you read the cycle, not necessarily what you do in it. Every credit card has two dates that carry different functions. The first is the statement close date, the moment the lender photographs the balance. The second is the payment due date, The deadline to pay without incurring interest or a late fee. Most people focus almost exclusively on the second date. Scoring models use the first date to construct the monthly data record. It is worth noting that lenders do not all report on an identical schedule. Some transmit balances on the statement close date. Others report a few days before or after. This variation means the reporting mechanics are easier to interpret when you understand your specific card's cycle. The logic is consistent, but the exact timing differs by institution. The report is sent. The system stores it. Scoring models that weight utilization as an input, and most major models do, are primarily reading percentages, not dollar totals. This is the distinction that makes two people with identical spending register very differently in the system. In practice, most FICO-based models tend to interpret utilization across three rough zones. Profiles reporting below 10% are generally associated with lower statistical risk signals. The range between 10% and 30% tends to produce a more moderate reading. Above 30%, the model begins registering a pattern it associates with elevated risk, even when the underlying finances are entirely manageable. These are observed tendencies in how the models behave, not published cutoffs. Two people spend the same $800 in a given month. One carries a combined credit limit of $10,000. The other has a combined limit of $2,400. The first reports roughly 8% utilization. The second reports about 33%. Same spending, completely different signal. The model generates two different risk readings from identical financial behavior. There is a second layer of measurement that most explanations leave out. Scoring models typically evaluate utilization in two directions simultaneously: the aggregate ratio across all open revolving accounts and the ratio on each individual account. Consider a profile with 4 credit cards. 3 carry low balances, each under 5% utilization. The fourth card has a $500 limit and is consistently reported at $480. That single card produces a 96% individual utilization reading. Even if the aggregate across all 4 cards sits below 15%, that one account is generating a concentrated risk signal on its own. The model reads both layers. A clean aggregate number does not automatically cancel a high individual ratio. One overlooked account functions like an outlier in an otherwise stable data set, and the model is built to notice outliers, a persistent misconception worth examining. Many people believe that carrying a revolving balance, paying interest deliberately, is necessary to register as an active credit user and improve the score. The reasoning sounds plausible on the surface. Lenders want borrowers, not dormant account holders. But scoring models require reportable account activity, not evidence that interest was charged. A balance of $15 reported on a $1,000 card registers as active use. If that $15 is paid in full before the due date, no interest accrues. The financial cost to the cardholder is zero. The model records activity regardless. A separate question comes up frequently and is worth addressing directly. Why does a score sometimes drop after paying off a loan in full? The answer involves a different section of the model, the portion that evaluates credit mix and account history. When an installment loan, such as a car loan, student loan, or personal loan is paid off and the account is closed, two things change at once. The account no longer contributes to the active mix of credit types the model uses to assess how a borrower manages different debt structures. And if the account carried a long history, its closure can reduce the average age of active accounts, a factor the model reads separately from utilization. The score movement is the model recalibrating based on a changed profile composition. It is not a penalty for responsible behavior. It is the system reflecting what is now present versus what was. A final consideration: understanding these mechanics does not require managing your profile with precision every month. For most people in most periods, consistent habits, paying on time, keeping balances from accumulating, not opening large numbers of new accounts in rapid succession, produce a profile that reads as stable. That is sufficient for ordinary financial life. But the model becomes a formal evaluation with concrete financial consequences at specific moments. Before a mortgage application, a difference of 40 points can shift the interest rate offered by a meaningful margin. a gap that compounds significantly across a 30-year loan term. Before an auto loan or a major new line of credit, the score functions as a structured risk input. At those moments, understanding how the model constructs the profile makes the output easier to interpret. Scoring systems like FICO operate through a precise set of rules. Most people internalize two of them: pay on time and avoid carrying balances that generate interest. Those two rules are accurate and important, but they describe behavior that interacts with only part of what the model measures. The model also operates through reporting rules, specific mechanics that govern when data is transmitted, what figures are captured, and how those figures are processed against statistical risk patterns. These rules are not arbitrary. They are structural. They apply consistently across accounts and cycles, with some variation in reporting timing depending on the institution. The principle that emerges from tracing this mechanism is straightforward. Scoring models do not estimate intentions. They process data recorded at specific moments in the reporting cycle. When you understand that, the system stops appearing inconsistent or arbitrary. It starts to look like what it actually is: a mechanism built on reporting rules and statistical risk signals, rules that process every account, every cycle, every month, whether or not the account holder is aware of them. What changes when you understand the mechanism is not the system. It is how clearly you can read it. Financial method. We don't sell dreams, we explain systems.